بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Now a couple of weeks ago when we last had the Fiqh of Janazah course, we made a start on the section of bathing the deceased and the sunnah way of performing the ghusl of the deceased. Now this particular slide, we've already looked at that before, but just obviously for the brothers who went there a couple of weeks ago, and also a kind of reminder and a refresher for everyone, we're just going to quickly go over these two slides again. Now I mentioned that the ruling of bathing the deceased is that it is farz kifaya. Now farz kifaya, there's two types of farz, there's two types of obligation. One is called farz ayn. Ayn is spelled with A-I-N, which is like every single individual has to do. Okay, so like, you know, your 5 namazis, that's like farz ayn on everyone. Your fasting, that's farz ayn on every single individual. Then you've got another category of obligation or farz, which is known as kifaya. And kifaya basically means that it's not obligatory on every single individual, but it's a communal obligation. And if in that community no one performed the ghusl of the deceased and they let him get buried, then every single individual of that community would be considered sinful. Okay, so that's what we mean by farz kifaya. I'll give you another example of farz kifaya, which some scholars have mentioned, is that it is obligatory, a farz kifaya communal obligation, that every single community or every single town and city have a alim and has a scholar. And if no one from that community or from that area trains someone to be a scholar or an imam, then what would happen, every single individual in that particular community will be considered sinful. Okay, so that's like another example of farz kifaya. So it's not obligatory for everyone to be a scholar, but what you need to have is at least in that community there has to be one imam, one knowledgeable person, so that if you are ever in need, like say for example, you know, how to perform the ghusl, how to bury the deceased, how to pray namaz over the deceased, then that imam, that scholar would be able to guide you. So as I was saying, that this it's a farz kifaya, it's a communal obligation, and the last particular ruling tells us that if you've buried the deceased, so you just basically put him into the grave, and the sand has not been thrown inside the qabr, so the sand, you haven't thrown that inside the qabr yet, and then somebody clicks on or somebody realizes that we're burying this guy and we haven't actually done his ghusl, then in that situation you will be allowed to take him out and then do his ghusl, do his washing and his bathing, and then you could pray his janazah and then put him back in again. However, if the last line tells us that if sand has already been thrown, then the body should not be removed. Meaning that if you've already buried him and then somebody clicks on that, oh, we just buried this guy without doing his ghusl and so on, then in that situation you won't be able to exhume the grave and the qabr, take him out and then do his ghusl.
Would they be sinful?
Yeah, they'll be sinful, yeah. They'll be sinful.
Even though if they forgot the body and then later on remember?
Yeah, even then they'll be sinful, yeah. Okay.
When you say sand, do you mean not completely buried or just even slightly?
Even a bit of, even one handful of sand, that's it. Okay.
That means soil, like?
Yes, soil, sand, whatever. Okay, now again, this particular slide, we looked at it last couple of weeks ago. Again, I just mentioned who should be giving the ghusl. We're not going to go over every single one of them because it's going to take too long. But basically, I mentioned the key rule is that men, they would be doing ghusl of men. Okay, and if a female was to pass away, then a female would be doing her ghusl and her bathing. Obviously, you could have a scenario where if a man passed away and there weren't any other males to give that particular man a ghusl, then in that situation, a female relative of this man, so it could be the man's sister, the man's daughter, the man's mother, can give that person not ghusl, but she will have to give that person a tayammum. Okay, and I mentioned the tayammum would be done with their own bare hands. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago in a bit more detail. And if it's the other way around, like obviously female passes away, a female has to do the ghusl. However, if female passed away and there weren't no other females around, there's only men there, So that female's mahram, male mahram, like the female's father, the female's son, the female's, say for example, brother, they would then give tayammum to that particular woman with their bare hands. And tayammum, remember, as we looked at before, is just like pass mud and soil over the mayyit's head and his arms all the way up to the elbows, and that would be the tayammum done. Okay.
What happens if she hasn't got any relatives?
Yeah,
Or
then
if the man
then I mentioned that then whoever's there, the mahram there, get mahram,
do that.
they will do tayammum, but they will use then some gloves or something. Gigi.
If there is no Muslim lady available, how about the non-Muslim lady? Can she give a ghusl to a lady?
That's a good question.
As far as I know, the condition is that it has to be a Muslim. As far as I know, so that's why, like for example, sometimes when somebody passes away and the nurses, they then give the ghusl in the hospital, so that's not going to be considered valid for the farz kifaya ghusl. So as far as I know, I'll inshallah check it up and let you know next week. But as far as I know, it has to be Muslims. As far as I know, it has to be Muslims. Okay, now let's have a look at the. So this is where we're going to start from fresh today. Okay, now this particular slide here tells us the things which we need for ghusl. Okay, when we are bathing the deceased, these are the following things which we need. Obviously, you don't have to need all of them, but obviously, like something like cotton wool, you need like obviously plastic gloves, buckets of water, soap, towels. So the coffin, the sheets, which we're going to look at inshallah in next week's lesson. So these are, in a nutshell, are the things which we need. Okay, obviously we need that kind of like a stand where we're going to place the deceased and we're going to do his ghusl. So these are the things which we need. Okay, and again just another picture. Okay, now these are the rulings and the masails here. Now, so we're going to look at the sequence and the method or the procedure of bathing the deceased. Now, first and foremost, it's not mentioned there, but if you could just write this down, that again, similar to when the mayyit is passing away, we read this a couple of weeks ago when he's in sakaratul maut. So similar to when the mayyit or the deceased is passing away, it is considered preferable and desirable that, number one, you have the mayyit's face facing towards the qibla, even when you're doing his ghusl. So just an example, like if we had a stand here and the mayyit is right in front of us, so whichever way qibla is, so say qibla is this way, so you should try to turn his face, just his face, towards the qibla.
It's solid. What do you do?
Yeah, if it's solid, then obviously, because obviously, yeah, if it's solid, meaning he was in the freezer and then he came out, obviously that's different. But if it's still numb and it's still like, or he wasn't in the freezer and he could turn his face around and his head around, then he should then turn his face towards the qibla. If that is not possible, then the second thing is that you should have his legs facing towards the qibla. Okay, like his legs will be facing towards the qibla. So just say if the stand's here, the mayyit's here, the deceased is here, so his legs will be, just imagine if qibla was on this particular direction, then you'll have his legs pointing and facing towards the qibla. Okay, obviously these are one of the situations you could say when having your feet towards the qibla would be allowed. Generally speaking, in normal situations, you're not allowed to, or it's considered to be disliked to have the legs facing towards the qibla. Do you have a question? No, okay. So these are, again, but as I mentioned before, that if that is not possible, because when you look at it, it's only possible, say for example, if it's a temporary place where you're having a stand, or if it's like say in Coventry Road Mosque where they have the janazah, they actually have a particular, the stand is like permanent there, so whichever way the stand has been placed, you have to put the mayyit and the deceased there. Okay, but obviously if it's one of those temporary stands where you could take it from one place to another, then in that situation you could actually move it around according to the qibla. But if it's somewhere where it's already been screwed onto the ground, so you won't be able to move it, the stand, so whichever way it's been screwed on, whichever direction, you just have to place the mayyit and you'll have to do the bathing and the ghusl in that particular way. So that's the first thing. Okay, now let's have a look at the rulings, the things which we should do or we should like apply or take into consideration before we bathe the deceased. Now, if we have a look at number 2, it's mentioned that the table or the stand that you're going to use, it should be washed 3 times and fragranced with permissible fragrances, i.e. Loban. Loban is a type of fragrance, a minimum of 3 times. Okay, so let's say, for example, like this is the stand or the table you're going to use to bathe the deceased. So before you get the deceased and you place him onto the stand or on the stand, what you should do is that you should wash that area, and also it's preferable to fragrance that stand as well. Okay, if it's possible. What normally people do, attar, or what people normally do is that next to the stand they light agarbatti. So these kind of things, or some people just have the agarbatti just lit on in that particular area. So something like that, as long as that particular stand or the table where you are performing the ghusl, there's some nice smell or nice fragrance coming out from, then the sunnah would be done. Okay, so again these things there you don't actually have to do. It's sunnah, it's desirable, but it's good practice that one should do it. Okay. Remember what I'm going to tell you, like obviously the next few pages, and I did explain this a couple of weeks ago, that this is the sunnah way, but you'll find that in many places they don't really follow this particular method. Okay, you'll see that they're just like, some of them, the deceased is there, they just like get the shower hose and just like go like that and just like do the job. For them it's like they just want to get it over and done with, so they don't actually do it according to sunnah. Some places I've witnessed that they don't do it according to sunnah, just like give a next level, just very quickly, just do the ghusl, get the deceased out because he's got another coffin, another deceased to bathe, so they want to really quickly do the job. But what I'm explaining here is the sunnah way, is the preferable way. And remember these things, these little things about perfuming the stand or the table, and remembering all these little rulings would only be possible if you then yourself practice it, by obviously observing a ghusl at first hand. Then only these little things you'll be able to understand. Okay, any questions before I move on? No? Okay, so as I was saying, that you should fragrance the table or the stand which you are using to bathe the ghusl. Okay, now rule number 3 goes on to say that no hair, nails or anything should be trimmed or removed from the deceased or the mayyit's body. Okay, so when he passes away, you're not allowed to cut his nail. Okay, just say for example, if that person had pubic hair longer than 40 days, you're not supposed to, but just say he did. So that's not a time to actually shave his pubic hair or shave his armpits or something like that. So what I'm trying to say is that when he passes away, you bury him the way he passed away, in terms of no cutting off nails, no removing of hair, no giving him a nice short back and side or step cut before he's buried or something like that. No of these kind of things, no circumcising the person, anything like these kind of things are not allowed. Okay, and the reason why they're not allowed is because obviously cutting your hair, cutting your nails, these are all considered to be part of beautification, zinat. And when somebody passes away, there's no beautification anymore, there's no zinat anymore. Okay, when we are alive, obviously we are encouraged, both the wife, both the woman and the husband as well, that we should beautify ourselves. We should put some cream on, oil our hair. These are all sunnahs of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when you pass away, you're dead. Who are you going to impress? There's no one to impress, is there? Obviously the only way you could impress Munkar and Nakir is through your amals. You're not going to be able to impress Munkar and Nakir and the angels and so on by having a nice haircut. The only way you can impress them is by amals and good actions. So therefore, as soon as you pass away, there's no beautification anymore, there's no zinat. So you don't no trimming of the hair, no cutting of the nails. All these things are totally barred and prohibited. Okay, rule number 4 and 5 we'll come back to in a second. I just want to quickly mention rule number 6 firstly, because it's linked with rule number 3. That rings, jewelry, these kind of things should be removed. Okay, so rings should be removed. Okay, jewelry should also be removed as well. So he passed away, he was wearing a watch, so you take his watch. These kind of things should be removed. Regarding nose stud and all these things, if it's possible to remove it, so as if a female passed away, so if it's possible to remove the nose stud, then you should take that away as well. However, as I mentioned before, that if you can't do it properly, just an example, like if the sister who passed away, she was in the freezer as well, and then it's really got stuck, there's no stud that got stuck onto her nose and you can't remove it, then in that situation just leave it as it is. Same with earrings as well. So if you can remove it, you should remove it, but if you can't, then don't give the mayyit or the deceased any kind of undue pain in removing it. Okay, now you may be thinking, well, it's dead, how is he going to get pain? It's mentioned in a hadith that mayyits, deceased, they feel pain as well. Even though they're dead, they can't hear they can't see what we're doing, but they actually feel pain. So you kind of like, what do you call it? You like when you remove something or you pinch the mayyit or something or the deceased, it does feel pain. It does get hurt, and that's why scholars have said that when you are bathing the deceased, this is more for. Obviously, if it was one of our loved ones passed away, obviously we'll treat the mayyit or deceased with some care. There's that love there. But sometimes what could happen is that we're bathing somebody else who's not related to us, who's not connected to us. And sometimes, like I've witnessed this myself, that you get other people who are doing ghusls of other people, and the way they treat them is like they literally they'll get the mayyit and just like drop him onto the table or drop him onto the stand. And you could sometimes feel like when something hard, because they're in the freezer, and then it makes a big banging noise. So if somebody had done that to us, we'll feel pain on our back. So you can imagine the mayyit or the deceased is also feeling pain as well. So you should be very, very gentle. Obviously, as I said, when we are bathing our own loved ones, we'll be very, very gentle. But the same should also happen when we are bathing somebody else, who may not be our cousin or relative or friend, but at the end of the day, he's also a Muslim brother as well. So we should also treat them gently when we are bathing them.
Would that mean if you're in the freezer, that would hurt as well?
Sorry, say that again?
In the freezer. Would that mean if they were in the freezer?
Yeah. That's why you shouldn't really do these things, and that's why it's like as soon as he passes away, you should do the ghusl straight away. Okay. Yeah, obviously they can't see us and they can't react any. That's the thing. What's happening here? Yeah.
So, would you say it's not really not recommended to put them in the freezer?
No, you shouldn't. No. You shouldn't.
So, if there have to be is it okay?
I think that's why it's
So if they can't be buried straight away,
everybody full screen. It's not full screen.
So if they can't be buried straight away, would you just say just leave them and put them in the freezer? Yeah, you should leave them out. Yeah, obviously if they say that, then if it's like a procedure, then you can't really do anything.
Go on the right hand side, the middle one. Now you know. Right on the top. What's up? Oh, the cross is not this one, red cross. Next to red cross.
No, I can't see anything.
Okay, red cross.
Oh, red
this one here.
That's it, yeah. That's it, yeah. Come.
What are you trying to do?
Nice.
Nice.
What are you trying to do?
Yeah, this one, I think.
What are you trying to do?
View.
Oh my god.
Okay, view.
And then go full screen mode.
Oh, full screen, exactly.
I could have told you.
Exactly. Okay.
This totally.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, so we didn't. So that's rule number 6 done. Now, very quickly, rule number 4 and 5. Okay, now we're going into the nitty-gritty of bathing the deceased. Okay, now if it's a male, firstly you should have a sheet over the male, above his from his basically belly button up to and including his knees, and then he goes and says that for a female, there should be a sheet which is covering her body up to and including her breasts. Okay. Now this is where, as I said, we're going to go into the nitty-gritty of bathing the deceased. Now, obviously, let's start with the male. So just an example, just say somebody's passed, obviously he's passed away, and if he's passed away in a hospital, he's going to be covered with a hospital sheet. What could sometimes happen is that they put him in the freezer. So do you know the sheet, the white cloth? It's got stuck to his body, okay, and obviously the ice and so on. So what you will do is that you will firstly, pick him up and you'll put him on the table, on the stand. Now then what you should do is that get a clean towel or a clean piece of sheet, and then obviously cover the area from his belly button up to and including his knees. You know, the satar area, that should be covered. Then afterwards, what you'll do is that, because now if we take the second scenario where the sheet is stuck to his body, so you'll have to get some scissors, and then you'll have to cut the sheet, yeah? Making sure that, this area here is always covered. Does that make sense? Make sure, don't, expose that area. So even when you are cutting under that area, so there should be some other, like two brothers say, like holding from either side, shielding that area, and then somebody without looking, then cutting the cloth which is stuck onto the mayyit, okay? Everybody understood how to do it? Okay? So that's the first thing you'll do. Does anybody want to, like, Anik, do you want to... Yeah?
What happens if it's stuck and all? You have to use water or something?
Yeah, you can use water too. Yeah. Yeah, if you just lie down on this table here.
I'll get off.
Yeah, because he did a couple last week.
You never did. There's a reason I never came last 2 weeks, and then. Yeah, and then.
Okay.
Carry on.
Can you get like a doll or something? What would you do?
Yeah, just lie down there.
Not the table.
Not the table. Are you kidding me?
Let's
It's
go
gonna
on.
break.
It's not gonna break, it's not that big.
I am.
Just lie down.
His
Not on the
guy.
table.
Okay.
Don't
Yeah,
break.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so basically, just imagine this is the cloth. Okay, so just imagine this is the cloth here, so which is covering obviously the private parts and the area from his belly button and his knee.
Hold up. Is that blood? There.
No, it's red pen.
Okay.
Okay, so just an example, as I was saying, that if he had a cloth which was stuck to his body, so you will use the thingy, you'll use the scissors to then cut the cloth which is stuck to his body. So you'll use scissors to do that, okay? Okay, so then afterwards, as I was saying, that there will be two brothers, they'll be like holding the cloth either side, and then somebody with scissors will then obviously cut from the side without looking at that particular area. Okay, understood that? Okay, just wait a second. Okay, so that's that first part. Now the second part is obviously where the mayyit to the deceased, he's just passed away. He hasn't been put into the freezer, and he's just got like cloth or something over his body. So now again, you'll lift him, you'll put him onto the stand. So again, you'll have a cloth or a towel covering his private parts. And what will you then do is that, the cloth which was over him, you'll then just basically drag it. Okay, because obviously it's not stuck to his body in it, so you can easily drag it. So again, you make sure that somebody holds on to the towel covering his private parts, and then the other cloth you just like basically drag it from either from his head side or from his leg side, and then obviously you do that. Okay. Okay. Any questions regarding that?
How did they wash it? Like,
You can cook the questions.
Yeah, washing. Yeah, we'll come back to it later. Obviously, without looking at. So basically, just another few minutes. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's look at the.
Next week, bring a pillow.
Okay. Okay. The next slide. Okay. Continuing. Okay. Yeah. The next slide. Okay. Now it's not mentioned here under rule number 7, but if you could just add this on before. Now, firstly, what you'll do is that you will then close, like you use cotton wool to close the deceased's nose or block the deceased's nose and his ears.
Yes.
So, obviously, if we had cotton wool, so we just put it up his nostrils and.
If his mouth is open, you can put a cotton in his mouth.
You put cotton in his mouth as well. But obviously, if it's like I said, if it's on the freezer, it's going to be stuck, so it won't be a problem. But
no, I mean,
if it's
suppose even if when they put him in the freezer, that time it was open.
no, I mentioned then you should then close it.
Yeah, but if you can't close it, if
Okay,
somebody
if you
hasn't
can't
done
close
it,
it, then you'll have to put something inside it.
It's just for the face action.
Yeah. So I'm that. Okay, so you'll put obviously some cotton wool up the nose, ears, and obviously in his mouth as well. Okay. Now, after you've done that, the first thing you will do is that you will do wuzu of the mayyit. So you'll do his basically wuzu. Okay. So obviously, remember you don't do gargling, because obviously, if you gargle, it's going to go down his throat, and obviously you're not going to rinse his nose. So obviously you start from his face. So what you do is that. Obviously, what normally happens in many of these funeral parlors is that they've got a shower hose
But obviously in other places like Bangladesh, and they actually get a bucket of water and they with a jug and then they use it. But normally they got shower hose, yeah. So when you get the shower hose and you basically wash his face, okay, like you do in his wuzu. So you wash his face, you get his arm. So you do his right arm up to his elbow, and then his left arm up to his elbow. You then wash your fingers, like wet your fingers, and then you do mass off his hair. Nothing around his ears, because as I said, water's going to go down and his ears blocked. Then you're not going to do that. And then obviously, no, not the neck, no.
I mean, like, you know, you don't.
No, you don't. No, that's you don't have to do that.
You can go
okay.
this way.
Okay, and then afterwards you'll just wash his feet, yeah, right foot and left foot. Okay, so you'll do his wudu first. Okay. Now, if somebody, say for example, passed away in the state of janaba meaning like he had a wet dream and so on, or certainly had a wet dream or something like that before, or something like that, or a woman in the state of period, something like that, then in that situation, you then have to, because obviously remember when somebody has a wet dream, it's first and obligatory that you rinse their mouth and their nose. So what you then do in that situation is that with wet cotton wool, you just like put it into his mouth and you just like just massage it, just like roll it around his mouth, make sure that it's wet. And the same with his nose as well, that you'll wet the cotton wool and then you just put it through his nostrils and just make sure that that area is wet. Okay, so remember that you'll do that if somebody has passed away in a state of janaba. So for men, those ones passed away, just say had a wet dream or intercourse with their wives and then they passed away in that state, or a woman who's passed away in a period, or a woman who's passed away in nifas, i.e. giving birth to a child. Okay, and that's like the most common situation, that she gave birth to a child and then she passed away. So for her, you have to actually gargle her mouth, or wet her mouth, shall I say, and also wet her nose as well. Okay. Yeah, with the cotton wool and just wet that area.
So suppose you don't know whether he had a wet dream or not.
If you're not sure, then yeah. But I think the situation where we know for sure is, say for example, woman passing away in childbirth. So we know that she's in that nifas state. So for her, definitely you have to.
Yeah. I mean, for the man and Allah.
If you're not sure, then
not sure.
If you're not sure.
How do you do the nose thing?
Or like, if for example, another could be something like the wife may, if she does communicate it somehow, just for example, if the husband had intercourse and then afterwards he passed away without ghusl.
She might not tell anybody.
Yeah, if she doesn't tell, then obviously you're not responsible. Yeah, obviously there's there could be some signs as well. What I mean by that is, just if example, he passed away and then when you were removing his clothes, his trousers, something like that, you saw some kind of like semen or something like that. Just say, if you get some kind of hints or isharas, that's different. So do you have a question?
Say about the nose, how do you kill those? You just put water on that side of the nose.
No. You just wet the cotton wool, wet the cotton wool and just put it up his nostrils and just like roll it one or two, just around it. That'll be sufficient.
Okay. The mouth is left inside the cheeks.
No, it's just
inside the cheeks for the mouth.
Yeah, mouth. Yeah, just all around with the wet cotton wool. Yeah. Okay. Sure. You get thawab, don't you? Getting thawab. Okay, now let's have a look at the next point, rule number 7. Okay, now this is now more about the procedure of the ghusl. Okay, so you do the wuzu, and this is now we're going to talk about the procedure of the ghusl. Now, firstly, after you've done the wuzu of the deceased, you then wash, as I mentioned there, that you then wash his head, his face, and his beard with soap. Okay. And obviously try to refrain from using any kind of alcoholic soap or alcohol or animal fats, these kind of things. A good thing to use in that situation would be simple soap, it's called, where they've got no kind of animal fats, no kind of alcohol, kind of anything, these kind of things. So chemicals inside. So what you should do, something like simple one. So you wash his face, wash his beard, and also wash his head as well, okay? Thereafter, the body should be tilted to its left side. Okay, would you come to the left now? Left meaning like proper, like when you go to.
Whole shoulder and the side.
Yeah.
Whole side.
Yeah, whole side. Yeah. Okay, so basically, what will happen? Okay, after you've done that and you washed away his, washed away, washed his head and his beard and so on. What you then do is that you then turn him to the left hand side, and this is where a lot of people get mixed up here. It's the deceased left we turn, okay? Because remember, the sunnah is to start from the right in terms of washing his body. Okay, so that's why the only way we can make sure that his right hand side of his body is washed is by turning him to the left. Okay, so you turn to the left again. Remember, there should be someone covering his covering his private part area. Okay, so there should be someone there. Doesn't mean like you expose it everywhere. So you just like wash that area. Okay. Okay. You know that cloth which we're covering. Obviously, don't worry about that if it gets wet or if any impurity comes, because that's the whole point of it. Like it's gonna get impure. So make sure that somebody's covered that, and then you wash the right hand side. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Do you know, like washing, is it alright just to run the shower head, or do you have to physically?
No, you should. You mentioned that.
You have to use soap and
you should use soap and everything. Yeah.
So you have to do
if somebody didn't use soap and just put the shower head, that's going to be done as well. But you could use soap and everything. Yeah. What normally happens, as I said, there'll be a lot of brothers there who's helping, and it's not going to be 1 or 2 people. So what tends to happen, a lot of people then take a part of like washing that.
But some places you might not find anybody who knows the thing.
That's true. Like as I said, like what I've explained, that is a sunnah way, but as I said, very rarely people do that. What normally happens, I said, just like people just wash it quickly and just like put the shower hose over it, and then that's it. You know, you're finished, and that's done. Okay, very people actually do it this particular way, which I'm explaining. Okay, then he goes number 10, that you then tilt the body to the right hand side, and then the left is what. Yeah, we're not going to go. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and then again number 11, in the same manner, water should be poured from head to toe once, and the body washed with soap. Now clean water should be poured for the 2nd and 3rd time. Okay, so now afterwards you just like wash his entire body from the head to the toe. Okay, again, as I said, there'll be a lot of brothers there helping out. You know, one brother may be like washing the upper part of his chest, somebody may do the inside area, some may be doing his legs or his feet. Remember, when you are washing the inside area, okay, make sure that you're wearing gloves. Okay, normally people do wear the gloves, but make sure you're wearing a thicker glove, shall I say. So when you're washing that area, you don't feel his private parts, if that makes sense. Okay, so something a thicker gloves you should wear to when it comes to washing his private. Yeah.
Use a sponge.
Yeah, sponge. Yeah, people use sponge. Yeah.
What about like cleaning the fingernails and stuff? We did that before to wash the body.
Mufti, if we're doing this
like cut his.
No, the dirt between the fingernails and toenails.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. That's all right. That's okay. That's fine.
Mufti. Now if you're doing this next week, can we get a pillow as well, please?
Yeah, inshallah.
Don't worry, you won't need it. We'll get a hammer.
A particular sequence for the right hand side. I start with the head, arm, and
when it comes to wash, no, you just top straight from the Okay. Okay. Now the next part. Now after you washed the deceased. Okay. So we've done his right and left hand side. Then you do the next part, which is quite important. Yeah. This is what we call.
One second. When you're dead, you know you said you feel. So if I was dead, I'll still feel that, wouldn't I?
You still what feel?
Feel that pain on that wall. So. Would you then recommend a pillow then for the dead?
No.
Don't worry, we'll make sure when you're dead, we'll give you a pillow.
Don't worry.
Okay. Okay. Now the
next
point.
Your will?
Okay. Now the next one. Next point you have to do is that do you know after you wash the right hand, left hand side, you then lift the mayyit. Okay. So I need to lift you. Not that much. Yeah. Okay. So basically to a sitting position here. You can actually see that from the first figure. So, and basically what you then do is that, you know, his stomach, you then, I want to do that, but you just like, you know, slowly massage it downwards. And the wisdom or the hikmah, you lie down now.
Yeah.
Okay, the wisdom or the hikmah regarding that is that obviously what could happen is that his belly may be a bit bloated. So obviously, so when you then massage it downwards, then any kind of impurity from his private parts like urine or anything else would then come out. Okay, obviously if nothing comes out, then that's good. But if something does come out, then he says you just wash your way. Okay, there's no need for you to there's no need for you to start the ghusl all again or the wuzu all again. That's not necessary. Anything impure comes out, like as I said, urine or even from his back private parts, any feces, anything was to come out, then you just wash that away, and that would be sufficient.
Why would you do that at the start?
When did you do that at the start?
Yeah, I would think you do that at the start.
I'm not sure.
I mean, they usually start. They do it.
They do a start. Yeah, I do remember.
Then again, if it does comes out, then they do it again.
Yeah. I have some people. Yeah, some places they do it at the start. Yeah. Okay. I said this is the tertib which we should follow. Yeah. But if someone used to do it at the start, fair enough. You just some places they do it twice. They do it at the start, and then after they do the ghusl, they just do it one more time to make sure.
To make sure.
Okay. Now. Okay. So the first, what I explained in the previous slide was just how to do the ghusl in terms of. Using it with bathing or washing the deceased with soap and then washing away the soap. Then afterwards you then do this. Now you do the exact same thing again, like you tilt the mayyit to the left and mayyit to the right, but this time you will wash him with camphor water. Okay. Now if you look at the picture, it's got the word kafur. That's like the Arabic word, and kafur or camphor, it's like what they use for mothballs. In like a whitish kind of substance. So they put that into water, mix it with water, so it gives that kind of nice aroma. Okay, and then what they do is that they just like
the one
put it. And they put it, and you just wash over the deceased with that. Okay, as I said, this is the sunnah way, but very few places do that. Okay, because they just have these shower hose in it, so they just like use that, and it's going to be a hassle for them to use camphor and so on. No, you know that mothball thing?
Mothball.
Yeah, you just put it into the water, you just let it dissolve. The wuzu area and stuff. Yeah. So you just you just let that dissolve. Again, you should do that, but I said very few places do it. They just use the shower hose and they just do everything like that. Okay. Okay, let's look at rule number 15. Okay, now it says that the body should be dry and the wet sheet be removed and replaced by a dry sheet. So after you've washed the deceased with the camphor water, the next thing you'll do is you'll obviously there'll be plenty of towels there. So what you'll do is that you just like wipe the water away from the deceased. So you just wipe his face, arms, his legs, his feet, and so on. And then what will you do is that again there will be two brothers. Yeah, there'll be two brothers. They'll be holding onto the sheet which was covering him, and they'll obviously dry the area there. And what they will do is that they'll like simultaneously they'll remove that and they'll put a clean sheet over that particular area. So just imagine like we just exposing your private parts. Okay, so we just like remove the wet sheet and then we quickly put the dry sheet over it. Okay, everybody understand that? Okay. Okay, then he says that the body should then be placed on the coffin. Okay, which we'll inshallah look at next week in a bit more detail. So after you've done that, then we'll take him to, well, it depends. Some places what happens is that they have the coffin there. So next to the stand, next to the table, they'll have the coffin already ready. And I'll explain next week the way they do it. So inside the coffin, they've got the three kapras, the three cloths you need, izar, lifafa and qamis. So they all got that ready. So what you then do is that you just like put the mayyit into the coffin, and then you just tie him and then place the three additional clothing over it. But we'll look at that in next week's lesson. Some of the places what they do is that from there they will take him to another place, another table where they've got all the cloth ready. So it depends on which particular funeral parlour is and how they do it. Okay. Any questions, or you could go if you want now.
I'm pretty comfortable.
Okay, you can stay there if you want. Are there any other questions regarding
the leg has to be washed 3 times, isn't it? The leg.
Yeah, everything 3 times. Sorry, you had a question. Bury the person. It depends. Obviously, like the rule, as far as I know, it's the rule of the council, the Birmingham Council, is that you have to bury someone with a coffin in it. So that's why you have to have a coffin. Some of the boroughs, I think in London, they allow, and in Blackburn as well, they allow burying the mayyit, the deceased, without a coffin. I've seen in our Bangladesh, Pakistan, they just do it without coffins. So, okay, let's have a look at some of the rulings with regards to bathing and ghusl and so on. Now, the first ruling here is that it is considered to be impermissible to take wages for bathing the deceased. Okay. All right, it's considered impermissible to take wages for bathing the deceased. Now, the reason why is because obviously this is something which is considered as like something, like shall I say, it's like considered first and foremost, it's like a ibadat and worship. And obviously for worship and ibadat, you shouldn't really take wages for that. Okay. Obviously, scholars have said because imamat and teaching, because of the time and the era, that's different. But for something like this, where it's not like it happens every day, okay, it's not like every day there's a particular deceased coming to the masjid for ghusl. So because it's something which is very, very rare, it doesn't really happen every day. Sometimes, months could pass, even years could pass without somebody passing away in that particular community. So therefore, you should not take wages for that. Okay, so people should do it. It's like you could say a right of a brother, that when he passes away, you do his ghusl, you do his bathing, you do his shrouding. So therefore, you should not really take money for that. Okay, so that's first number one. Number two, besides those who are assisting or who are helping out in the ghusl, no one else should be present there. Okay, again, this is very, very common as well in some of our communities, that there's only like 4 or 5 people doing it, or just say 5-6 people doing the ghusl, but you get like the whole crowd, they're just like looking at it and so on, and what happens, they cause a nuisance there, because sometimes these funeral parlors, they could be very, very tight in space. So you should only those people who need to be there, they should be there. But those who don't need to be there, then it's best for them that they they go somewhere else and they read Quran or something like that. It's more better that they do that. They shouldn't really be there and cause a nuisance. Any questions regarding first 2 points, though? Okay. Number 3, I mentioned last week as well, that if you see anything good or bad, then it should not be disclosed. I mentioned under the section where I said that when he passes away and he says like kalimai kufr, or he says something bad and then he passes away, then you should not disclose that. Exactly here as well, sometimes what could happen is that when you're bathing the deceased, there have been some stories of people, their face have turned, or like for example, they were inside the freezer and when they came out, their face was not like a human face, shall I say, like a dog or something like that. So, or anything, or just say for example you saw something bad, there have been stories like that when you're bathing, his face turned, or I don't know, something bad came out of his body, something like that. So these kind of things should not be, how should I say, disclosed to the anyone. Okay, because I mentioned that it's a sin, and sins there you should actually conceal it. You should not expose people's bad things. Okay, so if you see something bad happening whilst you were bathing the deceased, then you should not disclose that to anyone. Okay, however, you can disclose, I explained last week's lesson, without mentioning his name, in terms of you could say that, yeah, I was bathing someone and he's first turned into a dog. You could say that just to warn people that, look, you should mend your ways and mend your actions. But you can't really use his name, say his name and say that, oh, Abdurrahman, when he passed away, his face turned into a dog or a pig. You can't say that. What's the question? Yeah?
I understand why you can't say anything bad when you disclose whatever, but what can we say when you see something good? So is there any good or bad is seen?
Yeah, it's just bad.
But why you can't say
actually, yeah, good should be. They said good. Yeah, I think good. Yeah, if it's something good, like you saw some kind of like noor or something emitting from his face, or a nice smile or something like that. Yeah, good's okay. Yeah, good's okay. Yeah, just cross that off. Yeah. Okay, the next ruling is regarding babies and stillborn babies and so on. Okay, now if you could just, you probably need to make some notes here, because the handout is a bit slightly bare in certain places. Now let's have a look at the 4th bullet point, where it says that if a baby is born alive and thereafter passes away, so he was born and just say for example he cried, he screamed, and then he passed away, or he was born and just say he was alive for a few days, he was born premature, but he was live, like he still had life inside, and then after a few days he passed away.
What about a few minutes?
Yeah, even a few minutes, but he was born alive. That's the main thing. So even like just for example, he came out the mother's womb, he screamed, and then he died straight away, or he cried and then he died straight away. Okay, that is considered to be a live baby, if that makes sense. Okay. Now in that situation, the ruling is ghusl should be made. Okay, so you'll treat it like a normal human being in terms of ghusl will be made. You'll do its kafan. So kafan meaning, like we're going to look at next week regarding izar, kameez, you do the sunnah kafan. You also pray his janazah namaz. So the baby's janazah namaz you'll also have to pray. And also number 4, you should give it a name. Okay, so all 4 things will have to be given. So you give the ghusl, yeah, You do the kafan. So when we say kafan, the sunnah kafan, yeah, not just wrapping in a piece of cloth. The sunnah kafan, including the the izar, the lifafa, everything. And also number 3, janazah namaz will be prayed. So you do the janazah. And also number 4, you'll give it a name. Okay. What time is Isha? 9:30 Isha?
9:40.
9:40. Okay. Okay, Mr. So these are the things which you have to do. The next.
So they do exactly the same way the ghusl. You have to cover his private part.
Yeah, you'll have to do that. Yeah, it's adab and stuff. Yeah, obviously it's not that strict as for mature, but you should do that. Yeah. Okay, the next ruling, rule number 5. Sorry, if a baby is still born and the body is formed. Okay, so the baby came out basically dead, stillborn, meaning that it came out of the mother's womb dead, but it was formed. Formed meaning that it had the face, it had the arms, and so on. Or just example, the mother had a miscarriage, say after 7 months, 8 months, so it came out dead. So obviously, it's going to be very, very small at that time, but the arms, you could say, was formed, a bit of the face was formed, and so on. Now, in that situation, it's mentioned that it is preferable that you perform ghusl. So that's 1. And number 2, you give it a name. Okay, this is where a lot of people get mixed up is. So if it was born dead, stillborn, and it was like some parts of the baby's body has been formed, yeah? So in that situation, you should perform ghusl and also give it a name. Alright, however, if you just add this on, however, there'll be no janazah namaz and no sunnat kafan. Yeah, there'll be no janazah namaz and no sunnat kafan. So, the izar, the 3 cloths which you need. So what I mean by that, it doesn't mean you just bury like that. No, you wrap in a piece of cloth. All right, you just wrap in a piece of cloth. That's it. But there'll be no like sunnat kafan of izar, lifafa, kameez, and doing it in that particular way. But what you'll do is that there'll be you just wrap in a piece of cloth and you'll just bury. No janazah namaz. No need for janazah namaz in that situation, and you'll bury in that particular way.
Why is that? Why is that?
Because because obviously it's not like he was still born and he wasn't like born alive, so he doesn't have the rules as those who were born. It's like more like a body, if that makes sense. So they have different rulings.
Did you say we give the baby a name?
Yeah, you'll give the baby. Yeah, this is where a lot of people get mixed up. The preferred opinion of Hanafi fiqh is that in that situation as well, you should give the baby a name. Okay.
So what happens if it's half is, the baby is half already so it's got a leg but no arms or something?
Yeah, as long as part of the body is formed, then that's okay. As long as part of it is formed, that's okay.
You have to give a name.
You'll have to give a name, yeah. Okay, and the last ruling here is if a body is extremely burnt, water should be sprinkled or poured without the other rituals of ghusl being carried out. Okay. Now, there could be some scenarios where when the body is burnt, really, really burnt, and you can't, like when it's burnt here, basically, when it's burnt, it gets stiffened. So you can't give, as I mentioned, what do you call it, make it sit down and then do istinja, massage his body. You won't be able to do that. You won't be able to put anything up his nostrils or in his mouth, yeah? So in that situation, what you'll have to do, just pour water over the body, okay? Does that make sense? Because it's more like what do you call it, like a dead, it's obviously it's dead, but it's like a corpse. It's more like plastic, and it doesn't have any kind of life in it. So what you'll have to do, you just have to pour water over it, and that would be the sunnah ghusl done.
So what happens? Some people when they're dead and they are really bad, and their skin is coming up and all this.
Yeah.
So what do you do with this?
Again, just sprinkle water over it. Yeah, don't put that much water.
You can't put any soap or anything.
No. Yeah, don't put any soap or anything like that. Just sprinkle a bit of water and that's it. So the sunnah is done. Okay. Obviously, there are certain situations where you can't even do his ghusl as well. Where, for example, if somebody's passed away, and just say he's had a really bad skin disease or something like that. So what happens in that situation is that the hospital, they actually put it in the black bag. They actually put it and they don't allow you to open it. So if in that situation you can't do its ghusl, you just have to bury it like that. Or just for example, if the person was involved in an accident and his body just really in a bad state here, basically doesn't have a body, just all over the place here, just fingers here, just so what they do, just put in a black bag and just like give the body to you. So in that situation, there's no ghusl. You just like wrap a piece of cloth.
On the thing here, on the top of the black bag. So.
No. There's no point. So you just wrap the coffin over him, or if you can't do the coffin properly, just wrap a piece of cloth and just bury him like that. Okay. So there are certain situations where you don't do the ghusl as well. Okay. Proper ghusl. That is one of them when it's burnt, or like the brother mentioned regarding skin disease, skin is falling off. So you don't give him the good ghusl of, the soap and all these kind of things. You don't do that. Okay. And the last ruling here just mentions that, I think I mentioned last week's lesson as well, that in a situation where somebody drowned and the body became bloated, then in that situation ghusl is also necessary as well. So if somebody drowned, so somebody argue and say, well, it's nice and wet already, what's the point of giving you a further ghusl? No, you still have to give a ghusl, okay? And as I mentioned, however, if the body is not in a condition whereby the rituals of the ghusl may be performed, it will suffice to pour or sprinkle water over the body. This is in general, whether it's somebody after you recovered the body after he drowned, or any other situation like involving accident where he's not in the situation to actually give ghusl, you can't pour water over it, then in that situation, if you just like sprinkle water over it, that would be sufficient. Okay. Inshallah, that concludes. Inshallah. Yeah. So the next section would be regarding the kafan. We'll look at next week. I was thinking, next week shall we start 8 o'clock, because then it gets a bit late and afterwards start after Maghrib. I think it'll be more closer to 20 past.
10 past 8.
Yeah, but next week. Like 20 past. So we'll start 8 o'clock or something. Because after we do that Maghrib, it's going to be 35, 8, 40, and there's going to be 2 days.